Hello everyone, and welcome back to my series of videos making a small pipe organ from scratch. I'm in St. Thomas's, Leipzig. This is where the big man J.S. Bach worked for many years. I'm here tuning the organ up on the gallery, and down there is his tomb. And here I'm in the church all by myself, which is another rather thrilling experience. Anyway, we're on to making the wooden pipes. I'm going to have to separate this video up into, well, this is part of the stage of making the pipes into maybe two, probably three sections. So I'm going to have 5A, 5B, and want to try and keep it down to 20 minutes if possible, so I don't bore you all too much and keep you wanting. So, yep, here's the next video, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you. Right, we're on to the wooden pipes. This is by far the most time-consuming part of the organ. This is why I'm going to have to divide sections up into at least two parts, probably three. And we're going to start with more pine, more Swedish redwood. This is these are 3 meter lengths by 2 inch, not 2, maybe 3 inch, no, 2.5 inch maybe thick. I've got to mark out from I've got a spreadsheet which I do with every single bit of information that I require to make these pipes for the 8-foot stop and the 4-foot stop. So there are two wooden stops, 8-foot and 4-foot, and the metal 2-foot. The metal pipes I buy in, which I'll go into a much later date. But the wooden pipes are all made in-house, starting off from these great big slabs of wood. And I'm going to go through the whole process from start to finish. And hopefully you'll find it quite interesting. So I'm cutting to the lengths, looking at the cutting list that I have, which is related to the spreadsheet. We'll rip them down to width. First on the bandsaw. There's an awful lot of machining involved in making these pipes. But I'll machine every single part, every single side of every single pipe before I move forward to the next stage. It gets very, very repetitive and, well, not tedious, but certainly takes a lot of time. So I tend to start with the bottom octave first, because that's the most time-consuming part of the pipes, the biggest pipes. These are the bottom pot. You said an 8-foot. It's actually an 8-foot, but they're 4-foot long, these pipes, with a stopper in the end, which makes an 8-foot pitch. Simple physics, where the sound goes up, bounces off the stopper, and comes down, and it doubles the frequency, or halves the frequency, I should say. So it actually plays an octave lower. So I'm machining face and an edge, as usual, on the surface planer. Add to the bandsaw to start slicing them into the sides. Now the bottom pipes, the size thickness range for around about 9.5, 10 millimeters thick, down to the smallest pipes, which are about 3 millimeters thick. I'm going to cover, I'm not going to do everything, obviously it just takes too long to show you, but you get the idea. I'm seeing me do the big pipes down to the medium pipes and then the little pipes. I will try and fast forward through a lot of it because it can get quite tedious. So then I've got the planks at about 2 millimeters over thickness, and I'll just put them through once through the planer. And I will leave them a millimeter over thickness because once it's all glued up, the sides are on, all glued up, I will plane them down and take off a millimeter on each side, so we get them down to thickness. We want to try and get them as near to the exact size we want because there's very little space in the organ. We need to fit them all in where they need to go. So I'm aiming to get the pipes as near to the dimensions on the spreadsheet as possible. So then we put all four sides, the two sides, the front and the back, together, and we'll cut them to length as one pipe. So they're about 2 inches over length at this stage. I'm cutting an inch off either end, so they've got a nice edge or end to work with. Again, this saw is perfect for this. And we just have to get on with this. It's very time consuming. And making these pipes it can take probably about a week or more to make one stop. So I've got a couple of weeks at least ahead of me just making wooden pipes, which can be quite challenging. But as always, incredibly satisfying when you get the finished product. So now we're slicing them down to width. I'm looking at my spreadsheet, marking off from the cutting list exactly what the width of the sides are and the width of the front and the back, because obviously the pipe is rectangular, it's not perfectly square, they're rectangular. And I have all the information I need on the cutting list or the spreadsheet. So this is probably bottom C, the biggest pipe. And for the smaller pipes, I use this smaller saw, which I've inherited actually from the previous owner of the workshop. I'll go talk more about the previous owner of this workshop at some point, because he's been a big part of my life recently in my career, and he's been incredibly supportive and extraordinarily generous. I will go into more about the workshop at a later date. But this little saw doesn't have any extraction, unfortunately, but I have to put all the PPE on when I use this, but I'm going to try and rig up something at some point. So all we've got is a little vacuum cleaner, which gets a little bit of out, but it doesn't. You can see a lot of the dust spraying back into my face, so I've got a mask on. But this is great for these little smaller pipes, because there's no gap between the blade and the table, because the insert is a closer fit to the blade, so the bits aren't going to shoot down inside the saw. And then we go back to the big saw to do the width. It's just easier. This saw has a better cross-cut fence, ripping fence on it with a more accurate gauge on it, and I'm used to using this. So I'm changing the fence for every single pipe. It's incredibly time consuming, because obviously you're getting not only shorter, but we're getting narrower as well the further up you go. So each pipe is just smaller or bigger than the next one. No two pipes are the same. You have to concentrate quite hard at this. You've got to follow the spreadsheet and the cutting list. Make sure you get this right. It's very easy to lose your way, lose your place. We're getting smaller and smaller. Using push sticks, I'm getting my fingers anywhere near the blade. This is using when we were making these smaller pipes, because it's much easier to avoid the knots in the wood. We can get some premium wood. So I'm just going to spin this around, probably trying to get the best part of this little bit of wood out of it. There's a fair amount of waste involved with this, as you can see, but it's all firewood for the winter. So these are the smallest pipes now, which are 4 millimeters thick, machined to 4 millimeters, which will end up at about 3 millimeters when they're on the pipe. I'm going to clean up the pipe once the pipe is all glued up. And these are the slabs, the planks, the sides and the fronts and the backs. That's the 8 foot, and then we move on to the 4 foot. Then we move on to the blocks. Now the pipe has to have a block at the bottom of it to hold the pipe foot, and also to incorporate the windway to direct the wind across the mouth of the pipe. And so we're going to make up the blocks out of slabs. Now it's not so important about the knots of this. We can use some slightly substandard timber for this. It's not a problem, and it's quite a good use of the timber. We don't have to worry too much about the knots. So look at the roller again with the glue. I'm making it up out of different slabs of wood as economically as possible, so we'll waste as little as possible. And we have to have a cap on top of the block because where the wind comes across the block and across the mouth, we really want a hardwood there because we're going to dress it. We're going to it needs to be quite a sharp edge, so we want to pine it really is too soft for that. So we've got a mahogany veneer on the top of this, and you'll see later when we come to make the pipe and also do the voicing, we have to mess about with the mouth, and that's obviously a crude way of putting it, but it's called nicking. It's tiny little notches out of the mouth to slow the flow of the wind through. Otherwise, you get a very jiffy. You're constantly trying to slow reduce the velocity of the wind coming across the mouth. So you do that by playing around with the mouth, and that will come into that when we voice. But so there's a slab of mahogany on top. This is you can actually see that mahogany has a coating of some sort of horrible sticky shellac on it, and it's basically I've inherited some second-hand pipes which I've cut down, and it's nice quality mahogany, and I'm going to use it for the caps and the veneers for the blocks as well. Nice bit of recycling, which we like. So we glue all this together using good old-fashioned G-clamps. To the best for this. You exert a lot of pressure with them. And there they are, the finished blocks, ready to be cut up. So now there's another rather laborious process of cutting these blocks to size. Now, we're not just having the blocks. What you need is a block and a spacer at the end. And with the bigger pipes, we want another slice cut off for the stoppers that which you'll see later. So I'm working down to the right size for bottom C here, taking about 2 millimeters off at a time. Because the block slab is obviously oversized. Do the front and back, and then the sides. And now I've got to go over and over and over again, 100 and whatever times, to make the slab, make the blocks, because each block, obviously, as you go up, will get smaller, and here they are. So you can see there are three blocks there. It's the main block. The little slice is the spacer for the end when you're gluing up, which is sacrificial. Then the slice on top are the stoppers, which have handles drilled into them. Now we've got to mark off the windway into the block, so that when the pipe is standing on the upper board, the foot will be sitting in the tip board, held in by the rack board, and the pipe foot will be going through the bottom of the block and will be distributed across the mouth with these cutouts, which I'm marking here, have to be cut out on a bandsaw. Again, incredibly laborious and time consuming to work your way through it slowly and methodically, looking at the spreadsheet which I've got just next to me there with all the dimensions I need, getting smaller and smaller as you go up. And once I've done that, we just need to find the center of the block, the top of the block, or the bottom of the block as the pipe stands upright, to know where to drill the hole for the pipe foot. So just using diagonals, and then we'll make a little hole with a pointer to direct the drill. Point the drill, make it easier to get it more accurate. And then we need to, now first what we do is drill the hole out for the foot. And these will get slightly smaller again, like everything else, as you go up the scale. And drill just enough so that it lines up, it clears the windway, which we're going to cut in the bandsaw anyway. That's the biggest one. Then work my way up, changing the drills as we go, obviously because the feet get smaller. Checking the depth, don't want to go too far in. This is probably the second octave, the 4th octave. And then we do the little ones. We can only go so far with these little ones. The smallest, or the largest drill is at, I think it's 10 millimeters. The smallest blocks will be drilled once they're in the pipe because they're just too big for the block at this stage. Once you've got the sides drilled to it, you've got more substance. You can drill the holes without the risk of the block just disintegrating. So that's as far as we can go. That's not actually the smallest pipe. That will be another octave above that. We'll have to drill once the pipes are all made. So once we've done that, we'll move to the bandsaw and start cutting out the wind slots, the wind ways. Now you see why we drill the holes for the feet first, because otherwise we'd be left with there's not much materials. You could, because of the way of the grain, while you're drilling down, you could actually break that small piece off. You see what I mean? So it's better, it's safer to cut the hole first and then the windway. Now the bottom 7 pipes on this instrument, I think 7 pipes, don't have any pipe feet. They're horizontal, so they won't have any holes in them. These are the biggest ones. The holes will come out at the side of the big pipes. Because they're conveyed off with tubing. So it's all done freehand, this, with a very, very thin blade, 3/8 blade of that. This is beautifully versatile, this bandsaw actually, because normally I'm ripping massive 1.25" ripping blade on this, and this is a tiny, tiny blade which just cuts through this pine like a knife through butter. Now we're getting smaller and smaller. We can do every single block on this saw, right up to the top note on the 4-foot. A bit of care, just keep fingers out of the way, but we're going to turn to the really, really small ones now. Careful not to go too far and cut the thing in half. But that's there we go. I think that's probably the smallest one there. And there are all the blocks ready for the sides to be glued on. And I'm going to stop the video, this part of the video here, because we're going to keep it down to 20 minutes, as I said. So the next stage will be gluing the sides on, gluing the front and back on, cutting the bevels for the mouth. And so I'm going to leave it there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.